Welcome back to Search It Up with Sienna Spotlight, where I chat with creative, fun, and talented people in and around pop culture. Today I am joined by Tommy Byrnes, co-founder of Jalapa Jar, the most amazing salsa ever. Seriously, it's the best you're ever gonna try. I tried Jalapa Jar salsa at the Brooklyn Navy Yard flagship, and now I always keep it stocked at home, and I always have it on my tacos or quesadillas or literally anything. It's that good. Well, without further ado, please welcome Tommy Byrnes. Can you talk about how you came up with the idea to make your own recipe for salsa?
Yeah, so actually, it's a friend of mine's recipe that I grew up with down in Texas, and we've just passed it back and forth over email over the years. Go to company potlucks. Hey, bring your favorite homemade dish in, and share it with the people in the office, kind of thing. And it was always kind of my go-to because I wasn't really kitchen inclined, if you will. I wasn't
Yeah.
not a born chef or anything, and I just would always lean on my buddy's salsa recipe. And he sent me the recipe back in 2007, 2008, something like that. And I remember even at the bottom of it, he said, I think I finally perfected it, and I'm gonna put it in Whole Foods. We're gonna put it in the Austin Hot Sauce Festival, and it's gonna get into Whole Foods, and it's gonna be what I'm famous for. And then life kind of got in the way. He got married, had a couple kids, and really never sort of took the recipe and ran with it. And I was looking to start a business with my cousin, so I started the business with my cousin Steve Smith. Came from Wall Street, so I had a little bit more of finance background, understood how to raise capital to start a business like this. And we actually were spitting a bunch of different ideas all across the spectrum of different industries. But I was making my friend's salsa recipe just kind of, I was excited to just be back around fresh vegetables and sort of do things with my hands and whatever. And eventually one of our friends said, well, you guys are so excited to start a business, why don't you sell that salsa? It's the best salsa I've ever had. And so we called up Joel and said, hey, look, we think we're going to bring your salsa recipe to life. Can you help us sort of learn what it takes to make it, and how we can sort of train ourselves very quickly to start roasting peppers and make the salsa. And that's kind of it kind of started that sort of naively, if you will. It was like, hey,
Yeah.
we think this is really good, let's just try to make more of it. And we were lucky that the infrastructure around the city was starting to support small businesses that wanted to start things. So it
Yeah.
was easy to sort of just find a kitchen. You could rent it by the hour and say, okay, they have all the accreditations that you need to be official, and we can be here for our 2 hours. We'll make our 100 jars of salsa, and we'll take it to the farmer's market and see what happens. And it kind of just organically just sort of grew, from there.
So then what inspired you to then like taking those steps? Like what was the next step after that?
We were able to do sort of the simple stuff. We found a jar, we found a label. We got into smorgasbord, which was really exciting for us. Though your viewers that are maybe familiar with the New York area, smorgasbord is a very famous and sort of very well attended farmers market, if you will,
Yeah.
with a lot of really fun, up and coming, new idea food trucks and food stands and things like that. And they, over the years, have gotten quite a reputation where basically, if they choose that you're worthy of being in their market, it's sort of like a blessing, if you will. It gave us a reason to exist. It gave us a reason to go into the kitchen every week, make that week's batch, go take it to the smorgasbord and see how much of it we could sell, and start to generally get, it was fun that like friends and family told us it was great. It was even better once we started to get strangers who walked
Yeah.
up to the
Yeah.
table and said, oh, I'm from Texas, and this reminds me of home. And then we thought, okay, well, we have reason to quit our jobs and sink our lives into this.
So, did it take many I know that you said that it was, your friend also one of the founder's recipes, but you have so many different, salsas now, and so, like, so many different types, so what did it take to kinda perfect, the salsa and get, like, the different salsa, types down and scent flavors?
Most of it was just experimenting, and some of it was looking at what has sort of existed at the supermarket in the past. A green tomatillo based salsa is pretty common, so that was an easy one for us to say, okay, well, people are used to buying a green, but can we make a green that's really delicious and better?
Yeah.
Some of the other ones that we've had fun with, like our sweet heat, which is a pineapple based, was a bit more of just a summer experiment. We were just
Yeah.
we brought in some fresh pineapples just out of curiosity, and kind of were messing around with tinkering with. I think the original idea was actually we wanted to build like a stoplight. You could have a red salsa, a yellow salsa, and a green salsa. We thought, oh, the pineapple could be the yellow. And we just, you just kind of experiment. You're in the kitchen, you sort of take a little bit of cumin, you take a little bit of cilantro, you take a little bit of salt, and you just
Yeah.
kind of adjust as you see fit for different taste. And some of it falls into a bit of a formula. You're going to need the bulk of your recipe to be tomatoes or another fruit. You're going to need some onion and pepper to kind of give it some depth of flavor. And then some of the other stuff like a cumin or salt or pepper, or for the pineapple, a little bit of sugar, like that stuff is going to be much smaller percentages, but it's going to give it that last little kick. And then the thing that was the biggest for us that hopefully you recognized when you had it the first time is we keep it fresh. And that
Yeah.
really is what helps us stand out. Is anything that's in its fresh format, like you made it in your own kitchen, it's just going to taste more vibrant and be more delicious than something that maybe was made a year ago and it's been on the back of a truck and sitting on a shelf for a long time. And that's really where we kind of uncovered like our secret sauce, which was,
Yeah.
okay, how do we commit to making a fresh product but then still feel like we can distribute it around the country?
And how long does it take to like make the salsa and like the whole process?
We still make it by hand, which I think surprises some people. We've been around for
Yeah.
about 8 or 9 years now. We're in every Whole Foods around the country,
Mhm.
which is exciting for us because, like I mentioned, we weren't sure if we could distribute it from New York to, say, California or even Texas. Just thinking that the time it sits on a truck and all that kind of stuff. But we have a 16-week shelf life, so we do have some time from when we make it to get it to a local grocery store,
Yeah.
all the way across the country. And now we've got a great team of people that can do 10,000 jars in a week.
Wow.
And so it's really expedited in terms of getting a little more efficient and sort of knowing how to roast large amounts of peppers and blend them together. And you get some bigger baskets and things to sort of do things in, but we still do it in small batches. We do a 300-pound batch at a time, so that's 300 pounds is 300 jars. And so that's what's going to get made in a given basket, so everything's kind of a little more manageable, right? If anything was going to taste a little different, or maybe chef forgot to put the lime juice in or something, you can taste that stuff immediately and make small adjustments. And it's just it works for us to get fresh product out every week.
And you could even like see it too. Like I actually have one right here. As you
Ah,
can
there we
see,
go. Oh, it's empty.
almost
That's perfect.
empty. But like you can almost even see like how everything is like the little chunks, and like you could just see what's in it almost.
Yeah, definitely. Even like the little specks of black, which is the
Yeah.
char from
Yeah,
we
yeah,
really
yeah.
fire roast the peppers. One of the reasons we designed the label the way we did is we wanted you to see it as a consumer walking through the grocery store and be like, wow, that looks very vibrant and different than maybe something hidden behind a label. And all that stuff sort of adds up to what you as the customer might think when you're walking through the store, thinking, okay, I like this kind of salsa. Maybe I'll try this one today because it's really speaking to me.
Definitely. And how long does it take to roast the peppers?
So we'll roast peppers for, I mean, nowadays it's a couple hours in
Mhm.
order to get that, say, 10,000 pounds for the week.
Yeah.
Every day we're probably roasting 400 pounds,
Yeah.
and that'll take us, 2.5, maybe 3 hours total. We roast the red peppers as well. So, obviously your jalapenos are a little smaller. And so
Yeah.
you can get maybe 20 pounds in a couple of different trays. We'll put them on an open flame. And one of our brave team members will walk by and just sort of shake the tray so that they get a chance to rotate.
Yeah.
Whereas your red peppers are big red bell peppers, and so those take a little bit of tong expertise to get them
Yeah.
turning them, and almost like you're standing over the grill where you can get them all charred on every side. And it's something that started very innocently. The first batches were much smaller, and doing 20 pounds of jalapenos felt like a lot, and you're
Yeah.
sweating as you're standing in front of the stove and everything. And so, as we've gotten a little bit bigger, we found ways to sort of make sure it still gets that same flavor, but do it in a little bit larger volume.
What inspired you to bring it to New York? Because I read that you started this in Texas because you're from Austin. But what inspired you to bring it to the big city?
We were crazy, basically. Where we thought, where's the most expensive place we could possibly do this? No, I actually was living in London just before I started this with Steve, and I
Oh
called
wow.
him up. And Steve is part of my extended family, who's all from Long Island. And I said, hey, let's start a business together. I think your skills complement mine, and I think we can do something. And he was like, great, come sleep on my couch for a little bit. We'll kick some ideas around. And so I basically just landed in New York, and as the idea kind of grew, we were already based here. So I'm originally from Texas. We ended up going to Austin to do the Hot Sauce Festival,
Yeah.
just like Joel's email said, when we very first launched, just to kind of get feedback from, who knows salsa best than a bunch of crazy Texans that are willing to go in the August heat and try hot sauce in a park. And so we went there to kind of get our feet wet and kind of learn a
Yeah.
little bit about what we were looking for. So we had a kind of a start, so to speak, in Texas, but we were living in New York at the time, and at the same time is also when we got the introduction to Smorgasburg. So we've actually
Mhm.
always been in New York. It's just I have my history and roots tie back to Texas. Joel's based in Texas, and so sort of like if you started a pizza company in Texas, you'd want people to know you're from New York, right? It kind of lends a little credibility. People say, "Oh, this girl must know what she's doing because
Yeah.
New York's famous for pizza." We thought the reverse. We make sure we lean into our Texas roots if
Yeah.
we're going to
Yeah.
try to get people in New York to try salsa. And
What was one of the most challenging parts about creating your own product and company?
oh, the list is long for sure. Um, I think a lot of it is the industry is just it's very big.
Yeah.
It's been around for hundreds of years, right? Buying groceries has been around for forever. So there's just a lot of layers to it that are very rigid, and it's sort of like you have to do this in order to do that. What was easy was sort of you don't know those things, and so you just sort of
Yeah.
are naive enough to say, well, sort of like I said at the beginning, we made like 50 jars, and we said, oh, I hope we can sell these, and I hope people like them. And if so, the next week we made 100, and when we sold 100, we made 150. And so you kind of
Yeah.
just stay naive and small enough to just sort of focus on what's immediately in front of you and not worry about the more daunting parts of starting it.
Yeah.
It's always tough. It's just no matter what business you're starting, just because you eventually get out of your immediate circle of friends and family who will kind of support things and help promote it and tell their friends to try it and things like that. And that's where it gets hard because then you're out there competing with everybody from the other small up and coming maker to Tostitos or Coca-Cola
Yeah.
or Pepsi, and that's where it can get challenging. But customers are looking for really good delicious items, and they're looking for what's new and what's exciting. And if you can stick with it, then there's a path forward. You could just it's kind of like a little river. You got to like just meander around the rocks and keep flowing.
Did your vision for the company and salsa change at all as you developed it?
Not really, which I'm proud of. We very early on said we wanted to be fresh and we'll stick to this.
Mhm.
And we had plenty of unsolicited advice telling us, "Oh, that'll never work," and I've been in the industry forever, and you should do this. And but I like your colors and your branding, and we can make a shelf stable version much quicker, much cheaper. And
Yeah.
we shunned a lot of that. I think a little bit out of naivete and a little bit out of pride. Even my business partner, who's a little bit more uh, attuned to the dollars and cents of everything, was
Yeah.
not very easily swayed by some of those shortcuts because ultimately they don't. If you're not going to put the best product out there, eventually, I think you'll eventually get found out. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you can create lots of fun, shiny things to attract people once, maybe even twice, but they're not going to keep coming back unless they really believe that the product is delicious or good for
Yeah.
them or that has a real genuine value proposition. So by sticking to, we're going to make it fresh, even though it'll cost a little bit more and it'll take a little longer to, get up to speed. It's allowed us to sort of build a really solid foundation that hopefully people that come and buy the product, they know like, no, this stuff is every
Yeah.
time I buy it, it's really
Yeah.
delicious and it hasn't changed. And now, like I said earlier, we've sort of stumbled onto being a national product. I think in before we expected to, at least in terms of we're still making it in a small kitchen and by hand. And so it's like, well, wow, if we can do that like this, why can't we keep growing without having to compromise or take the shortcuts?
How did you figure out the shelf life for the salsa?
So it was a little tricky. Joel initially was like, "Oh, you'll get 90 days shelf life, no problem." Just to get in a little into the weeds of it, acidity is something that's good for
Mm.
products to maintain their shelf life. So in our case, tomatoes are very acidic. Lime juice is very acidic, and those things for us are both they're flavorful. So
Yeah.
they're not a added preservative. They're just sort of natural.
Yeah.
And so the acidity of the product maintained refrigerated should last a period of time, 90 days or longer.
Yeah.
But we had to go prove it. And so we
Yeah.
initially were told by Cornell. Cornell is the governing body for New York State for the
Mhm.
FDA. They kind of issue shelf lives for
Yeah.
different products. Like if you wanted to start a product tomorrow, you'd have to submit your paperwork to them, and they kind of put the stamp of like we say this is 10
Yeah.
days. We say this is a year or whatever, based on how you make it. And they initially only gave us 2 weeks, and basically
Oh,
we had to
wow.
go prove it. So we had to go to an independent lab and have them test the product every week and sort of confirm that there was no bacterial growth and there
Yeah.
was no mold or anything that was going to be harmful to people. And so it took us a little while to sort of, prove it, and we didn't have to change the recipe or do anything different. We just had to basically prove that it would last that long. And
Yeah.
the fortunate thing for us is we do breakfast tacos as well, and we
Yeah.
thought that that was a fun way to introduce the brand and get people to come try it and try our salsa. And so we were able to do that over the year and a half or so that it took us to kind of prove our shelf life, to just sort of keep the lights on, and introduce the product to new customers. And at the time, it was enough of a fun distraction. We thought, hey, maybe we'll be as big as Chipotle one day, and we'll have stores all over the country doing salsa and tacos. And we subsequently, stayed focused on just the salsa, but the tacos kind of just keep people coming in and trying things. And we still do tacos behind me right here down in the Navy Yard, Monday through Friday. You can come get breakfast tacos from us between the hours 11 and 3. And it's always something we've kind of just done to sort of support what we're doing. It's such a natural combination, right? Tacos and salsa. So
Well, actually, speaking of the what you're just talking about with your locations and stuff, so your sauces are being sold across the country at Whole Foods and grocery stores, but do you have any plans to open locations like the one in Brooklyn? I actually did because I do acting too, and I had this film class in there's this space called Real Arc.
oh yeah.
Up in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and we would have it would be like a camp thing in the summer, so it would be like an all day sort of thing.
Mhm.
And we would have our lunch break and we would go downstairs. I just remember having the tacos and the chips with the salsa, and it was like so good. And then I put two and two together later on when I figured out when I went to my friend's house. And but yeah, but so
That's awesome.
you have the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and that's your only like besides having your sauces and Whole Foods, that's like your only location right now. But
Right.
do you have any plans to open any others in the future?
I wouldn't say they're not at the forefront, but they're not out of our mind
Yeah,
entirely.
yeah, yeah.
So it's not something I mentioned earlier, like we thought maybe we would try to open a bunch of locations around the city. And
Mhm.
I don't think that that's in the near future, but I think doing maybe one or two others is certainly something we'd still consider. We
Yeah.
do have some ambition to maybe open a similar location to the Navy Yard, but on the West Coast.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
that'd be cool.
yeah, and the concept would be the same. We'd want to introduce ourselves to people by letting them come and try tacos, and
Yeah.
sort of have other ways to try our product and our brand, as opposed to just at Whole Foods. But the idea would be, if we're on the West Coast, then we can get access to produce a little quicker, a little
Yeah.
fresher, and distribute, the other half of the country a little shorter distance. And then both
Yeah.
facilities could sort of handle more each, because we would
Mhm.
split the country. So that's something that, if we ever get to that point, we'll have really made it, because we'll be operating two places. And that means that things are going really well. So hopefully we get there.
How did you find the space at the Brooklyn Navy Yard to open this?
We were a little lucky. It was right time, right place. The Navy Yard is a public-private partnership, so the city does have a lot of influence and sway in trying to revitalize the area. There's plenty of old warehouses. My grandfather actually worked here in the
Oh,
late
wow.
1930s on the
Oh,
naval
wow.
ships. Yeah, so it's kind of a cool family full
Yeah.
circle. I still picture him, working real hard and sweating on like some steel-based ship, and then
It's
here his
really cool.
grandson is making tacos. Feels like he feels more manly than me, but it paved the way. And it's
Yeah,
it's cool that
definitely.
it kind of comes full
No, that's
circle.
really cool. Speaking of, like, the tacos and, breakfast burritos, you only sell your salsas, in store, if I'm correct, like, in Whole Foods, but do you plan to ever also maybe sell other products from Jalapa Jar in Whole Foods or in other grocery stores?
Yeah, definitely. We have a few different things in mind. I'd kick it back to you. What do you think we should make next?
Um, oh, that's actually I mean, I the sauces are so good. You guys have hot sauces too, if I'm not right?
Yeah, that's right.
I feel
We've experimented a little bit with those.
Well, I feel like that would be cool because, like, speaking of, I watched like I've watched the show Hot Ones before,
Yeah,
and like, and been to a store called in Brooklyn actually called it's called Heat Honest,
yeah, yeah.
um, and where they sell like the hot sauces and they do like hot sauce tasting. So, and you have like the mild and medium. hot salsa. So have you ever like played around with that and seen if you like do like a really, really spicy salsa or something?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've had people come up to us since we started saying, "Oh, it's good, but I wish it was hotter." And you kind of look at them a little bit like, "Man, there's like a lot of jalapenos in this particular.
Yeah.
Our hot jar has a lot of jalapenos." So there's just, always going to be some segment of people that love like I want to feel my mouth on
Yeah.
fire. So we've experimented with some serrano peppers and some habaneros. So I was saying before when we started, we wanted to be very committed to like how flavorful and delicious and also hot can we make a jalapeno based salsa. But as we've opened up the kitchen and we've got more time to experiment, we've experimented with the other jalapeno or sorry the other peppers and things to try to make things hotter for a salsa, but also with some hot sauces like you mentioned. That was very
Yeah.
very astute that you picked up on. I think you can even see them in the background there. They're
Yeah,
like
I think
little
I can too.
green shaped, different shaped jars, a fermented ramp and jalapeno sauce, hot sauce that's really delicious. We've done some like pineapple and mango based hot sauces and things like that. So yeah, that's one avenue. We've also thought, we have tomatoes, we have onions, we have peppers, garlic. Maybe we should make pasta sauce.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually smart too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
already same ingredients.
one thing I do remember loving there too, which I'm no not sure if you make fresh, but maybe is the guacamole.
Oh yeah.
Is it was so good. I remember that with the chips too. Do you have like do you make your own chips there too, or do you
We did. We
like
just started making them. Yeah, yeah.
oh wow.
Our chef came to me and was like, "Look, I can make us chips." And I thought, well, I don't want it to become a whole thing. He's like, "Ah, no problem. We can make. I can make you however many chips you need every day." So yeah, we make our own chips for the store now. Probably in the last couple of years, if you or your viewers have been to the grocery store, you've probably seen an explosion in different chip options now. So it's a very
Yeah.
competitive space. You have Vista Hermosa, you have Sietes everywhere, you have Zach's Mighty Tortilla Chips. There's a lot of different people competing for the best chip that I think it would be very challenging and very competitive and also very
Yeah.
expensive to try to do that. So we probably won't make our own chips for distribution in grocery stores,
Yeah.
but it's fun to be able to make them here. And last
I
Christmas we did like sort of like a churro tasting one. It was like cinnamon and
ooh.
sugar that we did as kind
Ooh,
of like a
that's
dessert
probably good.
chip. And
Yeah.
it's fun to be able to have a small enough kitchen where you can do those things just
Do the
because it's
yeah.
fun and the people that are here will enjoy it, and it doesn't have to be sort of like, oh, is it viable to be shipped around the country or whatever.
Yeah.
But the sauces we take a little more seriously. We are experimenting with how can we get maybe that next flavor into the grocery stores. It sort of becomes part of what the grocery store expects. Is sort of like every year they want to sit down with you and say, okay, well, what's new?
Yeah.
You want to be able to
Well,
have some options for them.
I think the guacamole could be a really good idea because I love guacamole and chips and salsa and chips, but I feel like at restaurants I always have a really good guacamole, but when I go to the grocery stores, like it's never like as good as it
It's not the
could
same.
be. It's
Yeah.
just like almost more of like a processed avocado sort of taste. So I mean
You have
that
a
would
very
be really
refined palate if you're picking up on that already. I would definitely agree. It is hard. Guacamole is hard just because the avocados tend to
avocado,
turn
yeah.
very very quickly. But even with salsa, that's what we had the same reaction when you have a shelf stable product. So anything on you get next to the chips that's not refrigerated, they're going to add preservatives to it, or they're going to cook
Yeah.
it in such a way that is going to kill not only the bacteria but the flavor, and so you end up with kind of the
Yeah.
same kind of bland. Why can't it taste as good as our restaurant favorite salsas or guacamoles? That was kind of the inspo for making the salsa the way that we do. So yeah, maybe I mean everybody. There's lots of people out there trying to figure out because people love guacamole and
Yeah.
avocados. There's definitely no shortage of people trying to figure out, well, how do I put that in something that'll last, because you'd have
Yeah.
a gold mine on your hands because people would love, because it's delicious when it's made fresh, but it's a lot of work.
It
You're at
is,
home and
yeah.
maybe it's just for you. You don't want to open up a bunch of different avocados, tomatoes, onions. I mean, that'd take you half an hour. So, you'd rather be able to just open something and dip right in, right?
What is the most interesting thing that you've ever put salsa on?
Starting out with it, I would use it all the time to sort of make pasta sauce or pizza sauce with it, but
Oh,
without
wow.
changing it. I just would pour it on instead of
Yeah.
using a different sauce, and it was good. But we've
Yeah.
subsequently also developed a little bit of like a beta pasta sauce version that's similar ingredients. We roast them similarly, but we just blend it so it's a little more of what you expect for
Yeah,
pasta.
for a sauce.
So that's something that if you don't want to do that and you open up one of our jars of salsa, I highly recommend that you could just use it for a
Yeah.
substitute for any other tomato-based sauce. So some people have told us they love using it for like shrimp cocktail, because
Oh,
shrimp
I may have
cocktail
to try
sauce
that.
is,
That sounds good,
yeah,
actually.
it's usually like tomatoes with like horseradish. So it's
Yeah.
tomatoes with spice. So it's very similar. And again, most of your, shrimp cocktail sauces are going to be pasteurized and cooked and treated in a way where you're going to get that acidic kind of like
Yeah.
kind of taste. That a fresh version of our stuff will be a good alternative, even if it's like a little different, flavor profile. But oddest thing, we took it to a friend's house in the early days, and they were having a little bit too much fun, and they decided to dip a chocolate cake in it. So that's probably the
Oh,
most obscure thing I've ever seen
did they
anyone.
like
And
it?
they claimed it was amazing. Nobody else lined up to try it, but we all trusted that Matt was being truthful when he said it was great on chocolate cake. So
I
that's
think
probably
I feel like
our
I've heard
weirdest
like choc
answer.
yeah, I feel like I've heard chocolate and spice can go well together. So
Yeah, for
I
sure. And a little,
possibly,
tomato,
yeah.
it's sweet. So yeah,
Yeah.
I can kind of see it. But yeah, it's definitely versatile in that way. So if you're ever looking for some fresh alternative to your tomato sauces or things like that, I highly recommend.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to try that now. But so I have last thing is I do this thing with some of my guests, and it's a 5 question rapid fire. So,
All right.
like the first 4 questions are like sort of kind of just what comes to your mind. It's not like timed or anything, but like just like very simple, silly sort of questions. And then the last one is like I get a little bit more of a meaningful answer, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
All right. As long as you
Okay.
can edit it so that I look witty, I'm okay.
I will, I promise. Okay, so first question. Soft shell taco versus hard shell taco.
Hard shell.
Spicy or mild salsa? Or hot or
Medium?
mild?
Can I go
Hmm.
medium?
Yeah. That's
Is that
actually,
breaking the
yeah.
rules?
That's
Okay.
where I would go too. Yeah.
I want enough to be there. I don't want it to overwhelm what I'm eating.
Yeah. And favorite vacation spot?
Ooh, I'm not a beach person. I'm pale. So I don't
Just
like going into the heat for too long. I lived in Texas for too long, where I like to go, like, take me to the mountains, take me someplace
ooh,
where, you can be out in nature a little bit, but
yeah.
it's pleasant weather. So it was just in Oregon recently, and it was
Uh-huh.
awesome. Highly recommend.
Oh, that's
Oregon's
cool.
underrated part of the country. Just a lot of fun places to go where you're in the mountains, or you're by the river, or you're by the beach. Really cool part of the world.
French toast or pancakes?
French toast.
And what is some advice you would give to young entrepreneurs today?
Perseverance, which is sort of an easy thing to say, but I think what I mean by that is just sort of, you will run into roadblocks that you didn't
Yeah.
expect. I remember sort of very vividly actually telling Steve when we were very first going to start this, I was like, you'll be surprised that actually the people closest to you will be the ones that'll sort of cast the most doubt.
Yeah.
People that love and care for you are going to sort of edge on the side of being fearful because they want to protect you, right?
Yeah.
And that's hard sometimes, because it's the people that you want to sort of cheer you on will be the first ones to be
Yeah.
like, well, are you sure? And is that safe? And did you guys think about this? And then all of a sudden you feel almost like cornered, because if the people that care about you the most are casting some doubt, what do you think about strangers? And you go
Yeah.
outwards, and so it becomes a bit isolating. You have to have a lot of conviction in what you're doing and what you think you can sort of learn as you continue to grow, while also being I guess open to the fact that you probably do have some blind spots, or you forgot something, or you
Yeah.
didn't know as much about this part of the business as you thought you did. And one of the things I learned early in my career from a very successful entrepreneur who's started multiple companies that went on to billions of dollars in sales, so highly successful person, went to Harvard Business School, I
Oh
believe, and
wow.
Stanford. Actually, I think he went to Harvard undergrad and Stanford Business School. Like, the resume that you'd expect, right? Got things wrong 50% of the time. And
Yeah.
I learned a lot from that, that it wasn't about him being so smart that everything's right. It was just, you try it, you learn, you say, okay, let's either keep doing it, or let's pivot and do the slightly different version that we also thought might be successful. You have to be
Yeah.
sort of flexible, I think, while being a little bit convicted that you're going to be right, and be a little stubborn, but also be not stubborn, because every once in a while you have to say, all right, we tried to go 2 steps forward, but we need to come back and go left. And
Yeah.
I learned a lot from that particular gentleman, who again, I think from the outside in, a lot of people assume that somebody that's successful with a business sort of like had it all mapped out. And it's usually the opposite. It's just sort of like you know what's right in front of you, and you know what option A is and what option B is, and you sort of just keep going back and forth as you sort of try to move forward. So I don't know if that all fits under perseverance, but kind
No,
of. It's
yeah.
like
No, that's really good advice.
you'll get a
Yeah.
lot of pushback, you'll get a lot of doubt, you'll get a lot of things wrong, and you just have to be able to sort of not overly commit to any one thing, so that you're flexible enough to kind of meander a little bit.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah,
I
of course.
really enjoyed talking to you and learning about my favorite salsa and just so many things I never thought I would know. And I really had a lot of fun
Great. No, we
talking to
appreciate it.
you.
I
Thank you.
love the enthusiasm. It puts wind in our sails when we meet folks who just love the product so much that they get excited about it. It gets us re-excited about it. So
Yeah.
thank you
Well,
so much. And
I'll be at the Brooklyn Navy Yard soon, hopefully
well,
getting
next time,
lost.
yeah, now that we know each other,
Yeah,
come say hi.
I'll let you know next time
Maybe
when
you can
I'm
get back
heading
and roast
there.
some peppers for us.
Oh, I would love to. I'll let you know definitely next
Take the
time I'll be
spotlight on the
there.
road.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Have a good
Have a
day.
good
Enjoy your
rest of your
weekend.
day. Thank you so much, Tommy, for taking the time to share about how Jalapa Jar got started and your plans for the future. Well, that's it for today. Tune in next time for more on Spotlight.